I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, Militia? I'm Mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not trying to survive a killer clown killing spree in the middle of a cornfield, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And I am back at the Grizzly Cave to bring y'all my review of the newest killer clown slasher, Clown in a Cornfield, based on the books by Adam Caesar that I am a big fan of. So did this movie adaptation stand out on its own, or does it follow the same route that a lot of movie adaptations do and just not capture the book well at all? Let's talk about it. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. Looking for a fresh start, Quinn and her father moved to the quiet town of Kettle Springs, Missouri, but they soon learn that the fractured community has fallen on hard times after losing a treasured factory to a fire. And as the locals bicker amongst themselves, a sinister, grinning clown emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one victim at a time. So as I said before, this movie is based on a book series by Adam Caesar, and I am a big fan of that book series, and it is a modern horror slasher classic. Like, it is great. It's a great book, and it has a phenomenal final girl with Quinn Maybrook and a very, very solid slasher villain with Friendo the Clown. So I had a little bit of expectations going into this movie. I wanted this movie to really capture the book, and that was really the gist of what I was hoping for. I just wanted to see some good kills and for them to just capture this book the best way they possibly could with the small budget that they had. So the question is, did they? Let's talk about it. So starting out with the positives, this really nails the small town atmosphere that the book has. I love movies that take place in these small rural towns because that's where I'm from. I'm from a very small rural town. So they managed to capture that perfectly with the small downtown. There's no cityscapes at all, no big skyscrapers, none of that. It's just a small main street, and the town is surrounded by cornfields, and it just gives you this real homey, like, hometown feel, and I thought that they captured that perfectly. You got three standouts in the cast. You have Katie Douglas, who plays Quinn Maybrook. She does a pretty good job. She doesn't quite capture the badassness that the Quinn Maybrook in the book captures, but she does a serviceable job, and her acting's decent. It's not anything to like write home about. This isn't like Laura Rivera playing Sienna in the Terrifier movies, but it's a pretty decent final girl performance here. What I thought was pretty good was her chemistry on set with Aaron Abrams, who plays her father, Dr. Maybrook. They have a very good, convincing performance as father and daughter. Like, they really do bounce off each other very well. I thought that relationship seemed very genuine and not forced whatsoever. You can tell that their relationship is strained because of past events, and that they're both just trying to make it their own way, and they kind of have like a chaotic relationship at the moment because they both lost something, and both of them are dealing with it in other ways. She's dealing with it but all alone, or at least she feels like she's alone, while he seemingly is running from his problems and moving her and him out to this little podunk town in Missouri. So it causes this strain that seems very genuine and very realistic. The other standout here is Kevin Durant. He plays Arthur Hill, the dad of one of Quinn's friends. He plays like the oligarchy of the town, the rich person that pretty much runs the entire town. I think he does a very good job, and I think Kevin Durant is an actor that is in a lot of things, and he's in a lot of good stuff. He's in more good stuff than he is in bad stuff, and he's never really gotten a break. He's never really had his big break into stardom, but every time I see him in something, I know that he is going to be solid, and I know that he is going to give this great performance that's going to be memorable to that film. So it's good to see him here, and he does deliver a pretty good performance. You have Friendo the Clown. That is our killer's name here, and he is this kind of stereotypical killer clown, like with the costume. The costume's very well done, but there's a concept behind Friendo that I don't want to talk about, because if I do, it's going to bring spoilers, and I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. But the concept of Friendo is something that we have seen before, but not in this capacity. It's something that we've seen in more recent slashers over mainly from the 90s up into the 2000s, if that gives you any kind of a hint, that makes him stand out from modern slasher villains. He just has this persona to him that makes him way more threatening than what he is supposed to be. Moving on to the kills. The kills are gory and awesome. They are not these gory kills like you would see in the Terrifier movies, but they're pretty damn good. They got some pretty damn unique kills in this. Nothing that is like reinventing the wheel, but stuff you just don't see in most slasher movies. It's more like most slasher movies, you just see stabby heads getting cut off, stuff like that. There's a couple of things that are very similar to that, but they're done in a better way in what we're not used to seeing. And I appreciated those kills and how well they were done, and a lot of them were done practically, which is always going to get a plus from me. Moving on to the mixed aspect, the character of Sheriff Dunn, played by Will Sasso. Now, once I seen Will Sasso in it, I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be funny. But he actually gives a kind of genuine performance. He gives this performance of this podunk sheriff that's kind of does things the way he wants to do it. He doesn't care about the law. But the problem that I have with his portrayal of this character is, and it's not so much his fault as it is the writer and the director's fault, but that character in the book is terrifying. He is the scariest part of that book by far, the most threatening force of that book. And I'm not spoiling anything by telling you that. But I just feel like casting Will Sasso in that role automatically took the threat level from him away. It took the threat level from like Arlie Ermey's character in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, and instead brought it down to just your typical corrupt cop in modern movies. And I didn't hate his performance, but it definitely wasn't what I wanted it to be. The bare bones of the story is there, but to me it's too underdeveloped. Of course, they didn't have enough time to adapt the entire book, and I wasn't expecting them to do that, but I expected it to have a little bit more development than what it did, and a little bit better developed, if that makes any sense, because I'll get to that in the negative section, but it feels like that they could have done so much more to give the town of Kettle Springs more of an identity than what they did. They showed like a parade in the downtown and how the locals are, but there wasn't this, they didn't build the town up like they did in the book, and I felt like they could have done it just a little bit better than what they did. And finally, the humor. The humor was very hit or miss for me. There are times where it was hilarious, but if I had to count how many times it was effective and how many times it wasn't effective, it would be very lopsided in favor of the not effective part for me. To me, horror comedy is really, really hard to do. And we're living in a renaissance of horror comedy. We've had some great horror comedies. We've had Companion and Hard Eyes, and they have just nailed that aspect of horror comedy. Like, it's really hard to find that balance. And I don't think they quite find it here. But there are some jokes and some lines in here that really land. Like there's one, the scene that's in the trailer where the Gen Zers can't work the phone, that part, even though it was in the trailer, was funny as hell. It was so damn funny, and it was a good thing to cut the tension, but sometimes I feel like it undercuts the tone, and I'll get to that in my negatives. Moving on to the negatives, as I said before, the comedy doesn't always hit, and the ones that don't hit, they crash and burn for me. They're just not very well written at all. It's just kind of dumb humor, and to me that is low-hanging fruit. And I feel like if you're going to write a movie that's a horror comedy, you got to be really smart with how you write it. And I felt like that more times than none, they did fail. Some of the jokes did hit, and that's why I put that one in the mix session. But the ones that didn't hit, they crashed and burned for me. The rest of the cast and how they were written for the movie was very underwhelming and very underdeveloped. There are two characters in the movie that have a romance, and that romance is, in the book, is... it's not necessarily developed out in the open, but it's developed behind the scenes, and you always have little hints of it here and there throughout the book. And in the movie, they didn't exactly capture that properly, so when it happened, a lot of people in the theater just groaned and said, oh God, like, why? What purpose does this serve? It definitely, the way that they wrote it, it definitely catered to the anti-woke crowd. So it didn't hit at all, and I felt like that should have been written so much better, and it should have been developed so much more than what they actually did if they wanted it to be an effective, like, genuinely feeling relationship. And unfortunately, the rest of the cast, they're just cookie cutter, like, one size fits all slasher victims. There's the popular girl, there's the jock, there's the jokester, like, it's the same stereotypical stuff, and none of them really stand out. I think the movie takes too long to get going with not enough meat on its bones, if that makes any sense. So if you're going to take a while to build everything up, you have to give us some substance. And I felt like that they were ineffective in giving us enough substance to push us into the direction where Friendo shows up and all that. He shows up periodically throughout the first act of the movie, but to me it wasn't written effectively like it was in a book. In the book, they built up the characters, they made you care about the characters, they built up the backstory of the town a little bit better, and what led to these events and stuff, and I felt like it was just a little undercooked, and it felt like it drug a little bit throughout that first act until we finally get to shit popping off. And it didn't feel like what we got when stuff started popping off was worth that weight, if that makes any sense. It should have been the build-up should have been a lot better than what we got. And that kind of makes some of the kills in the beginning of the movie suffer a little bit, because it doesn't feel like that they are earned, if that makes any sense. It feels like it's just cannon fodder kills. And for some of the characters that are dying in the movie, in the book, they got you a little bit attached to those characters, or at least a little bit familiar with them before they just killed them off unceremoniously. Which leads me to the very anticlimactic ending. The ending, it's an ending, and it's not necessarily an ending that when the credits roll, like, you're pissed because it ended in a extremely dumb way where there was literally no resolution or anything, but something happens in the final act of this movie, and it wasn't done well enough to be like, oh shit, it's going to set this up or whatever. It's the only reason why we know that there's possibly going to be a sequel is because there's 2 more books. So it's like, the way that they set it up, it was just like, it was like like in old, like, superhero cartoons, it was like, haha, till we meet again, you know, like, and it didn't work at all for me, at all. So it made the ending very anticlimactic. And finally, this is going to be a hot take. I know it's going to be a hot take, but I didn't feel like that the choice they made for a director was a good choice. Now, I know there's a lot of Tucker and Dale fans out there, and I like Tucker and Dale, but I didn't feel like that this movie should have been directed by the guy who made a cult classic horror comedy. I felt like it should have been someone who had a little bit more of an edge to him, and it would have made this movie a lot better. Not to say that this movie didn't have to have comedic moments in it, but I feel like that it made some parts of the movie, just like when I was talking about the jokes crashing and burning, it made it silly and goofy. And the whole movie didn't have to be like that, and the movie is like that more times than it's not. And I think that has a lot to do with the director's style. I just don't think he was a good choice. It's no disrespect to the director or anybody who's a fan of Tucker and Dale. I just did not feel like that it worked for this movie or this story. But overall, I think if you like slashers, if you're a casual horror fan, casual slasher fan, I think you're going to enjoy this. If you're a fan of the book, you might be a little disappointed. But for me, I liked it. It just didn't blow me away like I wanted it to. And I didn't really expect it to blow me away, but with the current run of how movies are going, movies that I don't expect to be good and they turn out to be great, I expected this one to kind of surprise me a little bit, and it ended up just being okay to me. So with all that being said, Clown in a Cornfield gets a 3.75 out of 5. Go see it. It's coming to Shudder soon if it's not playing at your theater, so stay tuned to see it on Shudder. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for your continued patience and support. Without y'all, this channel isn't possible. And if you like this episode, like it. And if you like it enough, please head over to the page, subscribe, and hit that little bell notification so you never miss an episode. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so you can get channel updates, movie news, and all forms of badassery. Coming up next, we got Final Destination Bloodlines, and I am excited about this. This is a sequel that has been a long time coming. So I've actually been rewatching all the other ones trying to prepare for this one. Also, I went to the Crimson Screen Film Festival this weekend, and I'm preparing a lightning review video of all the feature films that I've seen there, so stay tuned for that as well. But until next time, remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.